Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. This podcast is all about our journey into the woods of ourselves, getting to know who we are, where we are, and where we're going in life so that we can create the life that we want to live. It's about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. It's also about mindset. Our beliefs are such an important part of this journey, and there are so many ways for us to change our mindset so that we can more easily live a life of expansive joy. This podcast is also about going literally into the woods and spending time in nature, and how that can help us on our own personal journey of self-knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now let's get into this week's episode. Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 437. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another exciting guest. Today, we're going to be talking about the Camino Primitivo, which is one of the various routes that goes across Spain as part of the Camino de Santiago. So I'm super excited to introduce this week's guest, Shawn Anderson. He has had loads of exciting adventures, some of which we touch on in this episode, but the focus is on the Camino Primitivo, which is Spain's very first Camino route, though its popularity has been eclipsed in recent years by the much more popular Camino Francés, which we have talked about on this show. In this episode, we discuss the inner aspects of hiking a long-distance trail like this one, and Shawn talks about the benefits of what he calls axe sharpening adventures. I love his take on the benefits of having regular adventures, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode. So who is Shawn Anderson? Shawn is a #1 ranked motivational author, unlimited thinker, and lifetime entrepreneur with a history of inspiring others. A 7-time author, Shawn is also the creator of the Extra Mile Day, a day of recognizing the power we have to create positive change when we go the extra mile. Shawn walks his talk. Besides having inspired tens of thousands through his speaking and writing, including an inspirational speaking tour in the Philippines attended by 20,000 attendees, Shawn's built a $1 million company. He's pedaled a bike solo across the US twice and created adventures in 50-plus countries, including having walked 3,500 miles across 8 countries since 2014. He's walked through England, Ireland, Spain twice, Portugal, Italy, France, and 750 miles around Japan. Still, he believes his greatest adventures and success are waiting to be lived. So what are you going to learn this week? We're going to talk about what is the Camino Primitivo and how it's different to the more popular Camino Francés. What are axe sharpening adventures and why you might want one? What to do when life dulls our passion? Why the Camino Primitivo is a humbling route. And finally, how to keep yourself sharp in life. So I really hope you enjoy this week's adventure. But before we get into this week's adventure, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a podcast that I was recently a guest on. I was recently a guest on the New Age Life podcast with Garima Nab. We had a really great conversation about nature and getting outdoors and tree communication. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's available on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to podcasts. If you head over to hollywharton.com/Garima, Garima, that will take you to the episode. Hope you enjoy it. And finally, this episode is sponsored by my new online course, Secrets of Tree Communication. Ever since I published my 2019 book, If Trees Could Talk, people have been asking me for help with tree communication. Readers want to learn how to do it themselves. I've slowly been working on a new book that's all about tree communication. I meant to have it done by the end of the year, but that's clearly not going to happen. So in the meantime, I've created an online course to help you get started communicating with trees and plants. Now, in the past, when I've done online courses, I've thrown in everything but the kitchen sink, making them overwhelming. That's why I kept this one short and simple so you can get started right away. But rest assured, you'll learn everything you need to know, and you'll be able to ask me questions if you run into any trouble. The course is a series of short videos, but because I know that not everyone has time to sit around and watch a video series, I'm also including it as an audio file so you can take it on the go. Are you not an auditory learner? I'm not, so I've got you covered with transcripts. Now, I'm keeping the introductory price super low for now, but as I add more to the course, the price will go up. You can get it now for just $47. You can learn more and sign up at hollywharton.com/secrets, and feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Hello, Shawn. How are you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Holly. I am doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to talk to you about the Camino.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty fond of the Camino, so I can tell you lots about it. Let's go.
All right. So let me get started by asking you briefly, what is the Camino de Santiago? Now, I've talked about this a few times in the podcast, so hopefully listeners will know, but they might not have listened to this episode. So what is the Camino?
Well, a lot of people think the Camino de Santiago is just one route
Mm,
across Europe that leads to Santiago, Spain, but that's really not true. Each of the routes has a separate name, and they're all Camino de Santiago. They're all leading to Santiago, Spain. And I guess a few thousand years ago, that's a route that the original pilgrims would take to go find the bones of one of the apostles, and it would be a very reflective moment, and they were searching for answers. And over time, different routes from all over Europe have expanded, all leading again to Santiago, and people have different reasons for doing the hike. The most famous is the Camino de Francés, which goes from Saint Jean, France to Santiago, Spain. That's the one people are most
mm,
familiar with.
mm. And what is the Camino Primitivo, which is the one that you walked?
Oh, fiddlesticks. That's a tough one. That's in northern Spain, and I just tackled that one in, I guess, August of this year. And it was about 200 plus miles and primitivo. And I always think, man, that's just like the word primitive, because
Yeah.
that's what it was. I mean, there was these up and down 45-degree hills that I was doing out in the middle of nowhere with no one around me, and it was storming and it was raining. I mean, it was really, the elements were more primitive than I've ever encountered before. And Polly, I train at sea level. I mean, Marina del
Ooh.
Rey, California, right on the ocean. There's not a lot of sand dunes I'm going up and down that prepare me to climb these mountains. So honestly, every time I do one of these big hikes, the first 7 days, I'm just wondering what the hell is wrong with me.
So do you find that after those first 7 days, you kind of really get into it and your kind of fitness level improves and you kind of get into a new rhythm?
Absolutely right. By then, your feet are starting to develop a little toughness, or you're learning to walk with the blisters or the lost toenail that's about to come.
Oh.
Right there, your emotions are getting a little bit more solid, and you know where you are, and you're not wishing to sit on your couch buying imaginary vows with Pat and Vanna. You get tougher. You get
Mm,
tougher mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and then you can start to breathe. You start to breathe in everything around you. You breathe the sights. You become appreciative of the breath that you're taking physically that allows you to continue to do this. You become so much tougher. Bottom line is you start to reach the edge of your comfort zone and then beyond. And every time we start to go beyond our comfort zone and realize we're not going to die, we start to go, wow, look at this.
mm. I always say this, but I find that every time I step out of my comfort zone in one area of my life, it has ripple effects on like every aspect of my life.
Well, that's why I do these long treks. And my first one was in 2014. And I guess now I've walked across 8 different countries and since 2014. And I've also pedaled the bike solo across the US twice. I
Wow.
do these because I call them my axe sharpening adventures. So if you imagine a wood chopper and he's trying to chop this wood, but he's using a dull axe, a dull blade, he's not able to get through these logs very easily until he sharpens his axe. Well, our life is like that too. Life dulls us. Life dulls our passion. Life dulls our intensity, our purpose, our vision. And so I do these adventures, these once a year stretching moments to go reignite my passion, to
Mm.
re identify and commit to my purpose. They're my axe sharpening adventures.
I love that. So why do you think that life dulls our passion?
Because it just beats the living daylights out of us. I mean, come on. I mean, ever since we wake up this morning, most people are not thinking, oh my God, today's an amazing day. Look at all the fun things I get to do. They're thinking, oh crap, I forgot to get the cat food last night and I've got this project at work and oh my gosh. I mean, it's just a series of negatives that come at us. Imagine that we're pushing life. It's a wheelbarrow and we're pushing through it. Well, life continues to throw more and more bricks on our wheelbarrow. So sometimes our wheelbarrows either tip over or we just are so exhausted we can't push them anymore.
Mm.
Life dulls us. We don't try to thrive anymore. We're just trying to survive, Holly, man. We're just trying to get through today, sometimes just the hour, sometimes just through the moment. And if we're not aware of that fact, if we're not aware that life is doling everything that you once dreamed of, then you're going to continue to live in a period of dullness for the rest of your life.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So what other adventures have you done and how did you get started in these axe sharpening adventures?
Oh, fiddlesticks. Well, the 2014, first off, I never knew about the Camino de Santiago until Again, 2014,
Wow.
a guy sends me a book and he says, "Hey, could you mind?" It's called 1 Million Steps. He says, "Do you mind reading my book and writing a blurb for me that I can use?" So I go, "Sure." I started reading the book and I go, "Oh my God, so this guy, he's walking across Spain? How do you do that?" And so I'm starting to read about these things and I go, "Whoa." So right there, the seed was planted. I mean, I'm not the sort of guy that just gets excited by what people do. I start to say, "Oh my God, that looks so amazing. I want to do
Yeah.
it too." So, Holly, was literally 60 days after finishing that book that
Wow.
I found myself in Saint Jean, France, about ready to walk over the Pyrenees Mountains.
Nice. I love how you just spontaneously dropped everything and did that.
Sometimes that's kind of what it takes. I mean, people write to me often and say, "Man, I wish I could live what you do. When I retire, I'm going to walk around the world too. When I retire, when this moment happens."
Mm,
I got to tell you, man, if we keep waiting for all these great moments, if we wait for the stars to fall into perfect alignment before we ever choose to act, we're going to be in our wheelchair at the end of life looking at the scrapbook of all the things we didn't do.
absolutely. Absolutely. As you're saying this, I feel like I kind of belong into that group because I have adventures all the time. I've done all kinds of walking and running adventures, but I have been wanting to walk the Camino Francés since 1996. And I live in England. Like I'm right across the water from Spain. Like it's not that far away. And I still haven't done it.
Well, here's a good one for you to start then. Just walk Hadrian's Wall. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's a short little one to start getting you exposed to. I think Hadrian's Wall from one coast of England. And first off, that's a cool thing to say. I walked across England. Man, I
Yeah.
walked from one body of water to the other. I think it's less than 150 miles.
It is. Yeah, I'm actually doing the coast to coast next year with some friends, and that's a little bit longer. I think it's 200 miles. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, walking across the country.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I'll tell you, I mean, walking across England, oh my gosh, first off, the wind blows
Yeah.
horizontally. My umbrellas were really not even qualified to operate in the United Kingdom, but I did find something magical to use with an umbrella.
Mm,
So when you walk across England, you're walking through huge, amazing, beautiful pasture land with giant cows, and you're going
mm,
through these unique fences. Sometimes you climb steps and you go up and over the fence, or sometimes you have to learn how to navigate a gate. Well,
mm.
when you navigate the gate and you get into this pasture, all of a sudden you see some of the biggest dude cows you've ever seen in your
Yeah.
life. And they're looking at you, and although they're tame as can be, they're not moving. Now,
Yeah.
I got to get to the other side of the pasture, but there are 30 cows right there that literally seem to be as tall as me. They're not moving. So, back to the umbrella. I learned to hold that umbrella in front of me and start spinning it, and it was almost like mesmerizing to them. And I
Wow.
parted those cows with spinning
Wow.
umbrella in front of me, like, oh my God. And that's how I crossed the United Kingdom with my umbrella.
All right. That's a good technique. I've crossed many fields of cows in this country, but I've never thought to bring an umbrella. Now I know.
Oh man. And then when you walk across England, I mean, you're walking across a lot of private land that's
Yeah.
been designated to be able to do this. And I learned the cows weren't my worry, but I'll tell you what, you take one of those big bull rams. One of
Oh,
those rams thinks that you are there to steal his
yeah.
girlfriend. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he is coming after you. I have ran with a 25-pound backpack screaming across Europe as fast as I could, never thinking I could run that fast because there's a ram chasing me.
Oh God, it's so scary. It's so scary. I'm always I'm always in awe of all of the Americans and North Americans walking and running on these trails with like bears and like cougars and scary things, but like rams and cows and bulls. I mean, they're kind of scary too.
Anything that's bigger than me that can trample me. I mean, I'm looking at that guy with respect. I mean, I am going, okay, bud, me and you were friends. Look in my eyes, we're friends. Look at, we're good. I'm a vegetarian. I would never dare. This is where you're supposed to be. Let's celebrate you. This is your property. Just let me pass through.
So getting back to the Camino Primitivo, how did you decide to do that one? It's much lesser known than the Camino Frances.
Well, I guess I've done maybe four of those, five of those. I'm not sure, but Primitivo, again, it always scared me because I don't like to be somewhere where if I get hurt, I don't have something within 8 miles or so that I could get to. And so the Primitivo always had me a little bit nervous, but I knew that I was getting so restless of not walking somewhere. And it
Mm.
seemed like we had a window of opportunity to travel, at least for Americans, over to Europe.
Oh
And
yeah.
as soon as that window with COVID opened up, I knew I had to go, but I also knew that I did not have the time capacity to take the risk of doing a 400 or 500 plus thing. So the
Mm.
Primitivo just kind of was a perfect distance. I'm also the sort of person that I like beginning line, starting lines, and finish lines. I need to start where you're supposed to start, and I need to
Yeah.
finish where you're supposed to finish. Like a marathon, I'm not the guy that runs from the 1 mile to 13 miles and say that's what she goes. I'm going to 26.2 no matter what, right? And so I needed a course. I needed to say, yeah, I did the whole dude.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up there.
And I think this is a really important thing for people who are listening to this who might not know that there's so many different caminos that go to Santiago. There are so many different lengths. Like you don't need to do the 4-week Camino Francés. You can do a shorter one that is a complete trail, but it's just not as long as the traditional one that people know about.
Yeah, and okay, so all these trails, they start to converge on Santiago. So eventually all of them become one.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this thing called the Compostela that
Yep.
people are really big on getting when they get to Santiago that says, I did this, what, blah, 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 blah. It's not important to me. I've never gotten it.
Oh.
But you qualify for this Compostela, I guess, if you do 100K. And
Mm.
so people are lining up at the 100K to Santiago mark. And it almost becomes like Disneyland out there at times, there, depending on the time, because so many people have jumped on the trail at that
Yeah.
time. So on this last thing, I mean, I was up there on the Primitivo where it was nothing but me and God sometimes. And then all of a sudden, those last 100K, when I had to connect with the Francés, Camino de Francés, I mean, all of a sudden, I literally felt like I was at Disneyland. There were so many people.
You're not the first person I've heard say that.
Yeah, but a lot of people can jump in there. And
Yeah.
what a lot of people do is they don't have 4 or 5 weeks to be able to walk the Camino de Francés. And so, yeah, that's an option. Over years, you just break it up. You go walk this segment, this segment, this segment, this segment.
Yeah. So do what you can. Like I'm like you. Like I love walking from point to point on a trail, but for people that can't do that, do what works for you.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to appreciate and do a Camino. I mean, something that a lot of people do is stay in albergues, which are these big public places where you're in a dormitory sometimes with 30 or 40 people, and you get your bed and you're laying out your bedding, and then you get to sleep with all these people making noises all night and talking and giggling and whatever. Or you can find what I always do, because I'm at that time in my life where I give every day my all. And at the end of the day, I swear to goodness, I just need to take off my clothes, flop on my bed after I've had my cerveza. And if I'm in a big albergue, a big public albergue with a whole bunch of people, you're a little bit limited in being able to do stuff, right? You can't jump. You don't have a bathroom to yourself. You don't have showers to yourself. So there's different ways that different people appreciate walking the Camino.
Mm. So what kinds of places were you staying in?
Well, I honestly just try to find the best shower and bed I can each night. That's like,
That's nice.
honestly, that's my thing. I have tried to do the other way, but for me, health is ultimate. And if I don't
Yeah.
have a good night's sleep, then that really sets me up for failure the next day. I mean, as you know, being a long distance endurance runner, the quality of your sleep is going to affect how your body feels and how many miles you could do. Sure, we could survive 1 or 2 days with limited sleep, poor eating habits. If you're going to walk 500 miles, you can't do that. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get injured. Your mental game's not going to be where it is to succeed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially when you're doing something that's like 2 weeks or more, like you really need to pay attention to your rest.
Yeah, my longest one ever was 48 days.
Wow.
And that's when I walked Shikoku, Japan. And that was 750 miles. And it's really my coolest, it's my hardest and my coolest. The trek is marked by visiting 88 Buddhist temples. Some of these temples are over 1,000 years old. So you're out in the middle of the Japanese jungle. You don't really know where you're going. You're by yourself. And then you come across this temple. Then you can hear the monks chanting this most delicious universe chant you've ever heard that just reinvigorates your soul. And it doesn't matter how tired or how beat up you are. You make it to this temple and you appreciate the moment. You appreciate history. You appreciate everything around you. And your body, your heart, your mind, your soul, it just all gets reinvigorated with such a personal power that you go, I did this. I achieved this. What else can I do?
I love that. That is something that I always feel whenever I push myself outside of my comfort zone, whether it's physically or otherwise. I'm always left with that feeling like, what else can I do? Like, I just did this awesome thing. What else is possible?
Because you've just given yourself courage. You just gave yourself courage on what you didn't think was possible. I mean, one of the great motivators, whether you love him or hate him of all time, Tony Robbins really became the guru, the master, because in his events, he did the fire walk.
Yeah.
Now, who in their right mind thinks that you can walk across hot coals barefoot, right? And even his whole approach, when he gets you marching out, all the people, 1,000 people out to the parking lot, and you see these big wood piles being set on fire, and then in 3 hours you're walking. Wait. I'm going to walk across that? How's that going to work? And then you come out and you take your shoes and you see these burning embers, the same kind that you would look in a fireplace. You're going, wait, what the heck? Is he crazy? Am I crazy? Are we both crazy? What's going on? And then you walk across something you thought was impossible, bare skin on hot embers. You make it to the other side and you go, holy SHI, fill in the rest. You just go, oh my God, how did that happen? What else in my life do I think I cannot do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Camino Primitivo, as you've said, it was remote, it was challenging. How else is it different from the better known Camino Frances?
Well, the Camino Francés, difference is there's so many places, there's so many small towns along that route. I mean, it's been so commercialized that if you're feeling beat up or worn out, just go 6K. Just go six
Hmm.
more K and you're going to find a bed probably, right? That's not the case on the Primitivo. On the Primitivo, you got to march it out there 29K today going up hills and down hills or else you have no bed. There's nowhere
Wow.
else to stay.
Yeah.
So psychologically, that puts a huge stress on you, especially if you wake up and you're already nursing bruised feet,
Hmm.
a toenail that's fallen off, and your knee is aching with every step, and you're going, "Oh God, man, I've got to walk 18 miles today. What the hell? How am I going to do that?" And you have no choice
Hmm.
because once you start and keep walking, you got to get there. My whole strategy on getting things done is get as much done early as you can to take the psychological pressure off myself.
Yep.
I know that if I can get two-thirds, three-fourths walked by 11:30 or 12, I got this, man. I
Yeah.
got this, and I can enjoy it coming home. But I've got to take the pressure off me mentally in order to succeed physically.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So, are there any like tourist attractions, major sites along this route, or is it just like wild nature?
Oh, there's about 10,000 trees that I said hello
Nice.
to that you might be able to
Nice.
find those same trees. There's just so many cool things. I mean, such a deep appreciation into what the land looked like 1,000 years ago everywhere. It's such a
Nice.
deep appreciation for smelling the freshest air. It's such
Mm.
a deep appreciation for just seeing a beautiful leaf on a tree that you might be the only human being on earth that has just looked at that leaf. There's such a deep appreciation for nature. So, yeah, all the sights to see, I got to tell you, they belong to Mother Earth. And
Yeah.
all the sights to see, it's also the chance to see into yourself. Because if you're looking for reflection, if you're looking to find your highest purpose, if you don't know where you're going or what you want to do, you go on one of these walks because you can't help grow from one of those walks and be a little bit different in the best of
Mhm.
ways when you finish.
Mm. And it sounds like it's also, I mean, obviously, there are much fewer people walking this route. Were you alone for most of the time, or were there always people around?
Well, it seemed like a few people had that idea at the very beginning that this was the window of opportunity to walk. And so
Mm.
the first few days, I would periodically run into some hikers that would pass me because, again, they were all much younger and I was still used to sea level, not
Mhm.
X what a feet. And so these young people were just blazing past me, which is really not my experience in life because I am a really good walker. I mean, I can pound out 25 miles a day for 20 straight days with a backpack and just crank it up hills. But this was such a humbling walk because the
Mm.
few walkers I did see, they were jets. They were jets to my roller skates. I mean, I was thinking, oh my God, I was just trying to survive, honestly. I was just trying to get up to the hill. And that's what I would do sometimes. I mean, I don't start thinking about, okay, I have to make it 18 more kilometers today. I'm just thinking, okay, that ridge right there, just get there, Sean. Come on,
Mm.
just get to that ridge. Just get to that ridge. Nothing else matters. Just get to that ridge. And that's the kind of self talk that you have to do.
Wow. So I'm kind of getting a picture for why this is considered to be the most challenging of all the Caminos. How's the actual trail? I mean, do you ever feel like you're about to like fall off down a bank or or is it kind of, I don't know, is it technical or is it, do you have enough kind of space to walk on?
Yeah, there's definitely enough space. I think the most challenging part, I can't tell you specifically where it was, but I was probably around day 8 or 9. I had to climb this huge mountain and the weather was really crappy. I mean, it was coming down on me as if there were 1,000 hoses shooting from heaven, drenching me. And my feet were sinking in the mud and it was so wet and I was cold. I was so cold. It's one of those when you breathe out, you could just see the frost all
Mm.
around you.
Mm.
And, I'm in shorts, I'm wet, I'm cold, I'm sinking, I'm slipping on the rocks. I have to keep my eyes focused down because you can't miss a step sometimes. You
Yeah.
can't hit that rock or your ankle's shot. And so there was a time out there that I was just thinking, I mean, self doubt creeps in. there's chances that sometimes that self-doubt, and then you just have to tell yourself to shut up. There comes a time in life where when you start to hear yourself sabotage yourself, you have to learn to say shut up, and you have to just keep pushing because you know what's your option. I can't
Mhm.
stop right here. I can't go under a tree and get cover right now. I got to get up this mountain trek. And if you keep grinding, if you keep grinding, if you keep grinding, and oftentimes I would repeat mantras over and over and over just to try to reprogram my thinking, reprogram my
Mm.
going up. You so got this. You so got this. You so got this. I would change that. It empowers your soul, and then you get across that. You can get it up there because you just said, if you kept saying, my God, I'm not going to be able to do this. Oh
Yeah,
my God, I'm not going to be able to do this. Well, you're not going to be able to do it, right?
exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's that perfect place where you learn to really become your best friend.
Yeah, I like that.
I know you do because that's who you are.
So is this route well marked or do you need to
Yes.
like, oh, good. Okay. I was
Yes.
wondering
Just
if it
follow
was
the
like,
yellow arrows.
okay,
Follow the arrows,
cool,
right?
cool, cool.
Except Holly, oh fiddlesticks, it slipped my name now with the town that I actually started this in. But sometimes in some towns, each of the towns across Spain, they mark routes differently. I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
there's Camino shells on the ground that you have to try to, clam shells that are traditional Camino shell. They look like clam shells
Mm,
and they're in the sidewalk and you have to follow them. And if you miss one, you're lost. You don't know how to
mm,
get through towns. And on this particular route, I could not figure out how to get out of town because
yeah.
there's not yellow arrows. The
Yeah.
yellow arrows don't start hitting you until the country.
Mm. I've always heard, even from the Camino Francés, that people tend to get lost in the towns because they're super confusing. Whereas when you're out in nature, it's really easy.
Yeah, you got to pay attention because it's just not a big giant yellow arrow that has neon
Mm.
flashing lights that says arrow here, turn left, arrow here, turn left. Sometimes they're in the most discreet ways. It's faded 20 years ago. It's on the
Yeah.
rock right over there to the right. You're supposed to go that way. Sometimes it's on the tree. It's like a puzzle. It's like trying to find these breadcrumbs that have been laid out for you, and you got to keep following them. And my
Mm.
general rule of thumb is if I've walked for like 20 minutes and I can't find my next turn, I go back. Instead of getting lost, which can be dangerous, you go back to the last arrow and you go
Yep.
there and you try to find it again.
Mm. That I think is really helpful because it's good to have a rule of thumb like that, like 20 minutes. Okay, if I've been walking for 20 minutes and I have no clue, then I go back. That's really, really helpful for people.
Yeah, because actually 20 minutes is a really a long time. You
Yeah.
should hit an arrow between 20 minutes because remember 20 minutes, that's really 40 minutes that you just blown in your day. So because you got to go 20 out, 20
Yep.
back, right? And so that can be really critical, especially if a person can't go more than 5 or 6 hours walking in a day. When
Mm.
you've just added an extra 40 minutes, you just really worn out your body. And a lot of people that walk the Camino, they're so happy about going out and tackling this great adventure, but they just don't really know what's in store for them. They don't
Yeah.
really know what it's like to walk 15 miles every single day carrying the weight on your shoulders. They
Yeah.
don't know what it's like when you have to carry your own water and hopefully find food because it's a Monday and everything's closed and you can't find a store or a place to eat. All this stuff, reality becomes much different in fantasy.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So how fit do you really need to be to walk this route? Because I know it's, as you said, much more challenging.
The Primitivo,
Yeah.
I would say it's not for beginners any shape or form.
Okay.
Man, if you are not someone who's used to trekking and who's put miles on your body, I say my suggestion, it's only my
Mm.
suggestion because I don't know how awesome you are, listener. But
Mm.
my suggestion is just start with something a little bit more to make sure that you know what it is to walk 15 miles day in and day out before you
Yeah.
attack the Primitivo.
With a full backpack. Like, I think it's always a good idea to do your training with a full backpack because first trail that I walked, it was just a 100-mile trail here in England, but I had not trained with a full backpack. And my feet hurt a lot every single day. And so that was a good lesson to learn.
And you're a person who's really has tough feet. I mean, for you to run as much as you do, to have done
Yeah.
endurances, I mean, your feet aren't naive to what it is to run 20, 30, 40, 50 miles. I mean, you know how to do it. Now, something that's becoming very popular that I've noticed on the Camino is a lot of people aren't carrying their packs. So there's delivery
Ah,
services that meet you wherever you were that day and they pick up your pack.
yeah.
You take just a day pack and then they deliver it to your next destination.
Mm.
Me, I don't like that. I want my stuff with me, right?
Me too. Me too. Also, I've thought about that and I've thought, well, the stuff I need at night is minimal compared to what I'm going to bring during the day. Like, I'm always going to want my waterproofs and water is really heavy. And most of the stuff I want to have it with me anyway. So the nighttime stuff, like, I don't know, it's quite small. I don't think it's worth, for me at least, sending a bag along the way.
Yeah, and I just don't want to be separated from my bag. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a guy that had a passport stolen in Barcelona, Spain, and I had to
Oh,
sleep on the street one night. And so I know what it is to not have your stuff.
yeah.
And so my stuff's on my back. There's a far less chance that it's going to get lost than if my stuff's in a van and somewhere in another hotel where it's not supposed to be, right?
Mm. So what time of the year did you walk the Primitivo?
August,
Oh, and
August,
how was that?
wet,
Really? I would not expect
wet,
Spain to be
wet
wet in
and cold.
August. Oh,
Wet and
really?
cold. Yeah. And again, maybe it's just northern Spain. I mean, the
Yep.
Primitivo is northern Spain.
Yeah.
It's all the way up there, and we're in the mountains,
Yep.
and you're walking in the big trees, and the shadows block whatever sun is, and if there's a wind, and if it's raining, and wind and rain, and it just all make you really cold.
Okay, that's interesting because when I'm thinking about the Camino Francés, the common advice is never to do it in the summer because it's really crowded in the summer. So you've got to go kind of spring and fall. So I think this might be a good alternative route for people who want to walk a Camino in the summer and they have the physical fitness for it.
Yeah, I think someone like you, again, who's so trained with endurance races, you know what it is to struggle physically and
Yeah.
come out the other end. This could be a really good test for you, something that you are definitely fit and ready to go.
Hmm.
But temperature is a big deal, I'll tell you, because one of my worst walks ever, I think it was 2016, 17, I walked across Italy. I walked from Milan to Rome. And at that time, Europe was going through one of the worst heat spells, historical heat spell.
Hmm.
And the temperature someday got to be like 110 degrees, and I'm out there walking. And again, I got to get to where I got to get.
Hmm.
And when you're walking in the heat and you're so desperate and you're sticky, and flies think that you're the coolest transportation mode they've ever seen, and they follow you the whole way, and they're on you, they're landing on your face and your arms and your legs and your body. And I mean, the heat can just kill you. And
Yeah.
nothing killed my attitude more than walking in the heat.
Yeah. I am not good with heat. I do not like heat. I'm very wary of signing up for things where heat might be involved.
Here's a couple of big things that might help any of your listeners that are thinking about walking. I don't walk with boots. I've always worn sneakers because I need to keep my feet light.
Yep.
Number one, I usually do more miles than the average person. And at the end of the day, if I'm wearing boots, my feet are too heavy and I'm more tripped to fall. So I
Hmm.
keep my feet light. I move faster. Now, recently I learned that I can hurt my toes and stuff because when you're going down hills, the sneakers, your toes push into the
Mm.
front of your thing, and so you get purple toenails all the
Yep.
time. I've learned also to carry with me a pair of walking sandals, a hiking sandals.
Yeah.
So this last Primitivo, I was alternating. It was my best foot trip ever because I was
Mm.
alternating shoes with the open-toed sandal when I felt like I could handle that and I could go uphill with that, and then going downhill with the sneakers because they weren't on my feet all the time. I could handle that. So shoe wear is a big deal. Again, a
Mm.
lot of people say I need to wear boots. I need to protect my ankles. I need to protect my feet on the bottom. Try what's best for you, but I
Yep.
think keep feet light. The second thing is I don't walk with trekking poles. Again, a lot of people do. They think you need to have poles. I don't use that. If I fall, I need to be able to use my hands to
Mm.
brace myself and catch myself quicker. And I've
Hmm.
always felt that I can move faster uphill and downhill with poles. I mean, without poles. People feel with poles that sometimes it takes
Yep.
weight off their knees, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. It's just not me. So I
Mm.
wear sneakers and I don't carry poles.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a very important lesson is do what works for you. And when you're training is when you need to play around with the stuff. Try poles, try without poles, like try with sneakers, try with boots, try with your running shoes, whatever. Like find what works for you.
Yeah, and this year, I never thought I would be crazy enough in life to spend $25 for pairs of socks. But these companies believe that these are blisterless socks, this one seam guaranteed for life. So I went that route this year. I can't argue. My toes, my feet felt amazing. So I think the one thing that you can't compromise on is making sure that you have the best foot protection
Yep.
and foot care you can. Because, man, if your feet get unhealthy, that's a signal that you might not be able to make this.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you start getting blisters and once you start getting bruised toenails, and that it just really messes with your mind and your physical ability to complete the trail.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure as a Western endurance runner, I mean, when you start hitting over 25, 30, 40 miles, you are going to have feet pain. You are going to
Yeah.
have the hot spots developing. You are going to have the toenail that's starting to get irritated. And when you're walking the Camino, the very instant you feel the first detection, you need to take care of your feet immediately.
Yeah.
You don't wait and say, let me walk through this, or this is, get tough, Sean. You take care of it. You start wrapping it, whatever it takes, but you fix it before it gets bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that a lot of people avoid because they think, oh, it'll be okay, it'll be fine, I can do it. But that's the sign that you need to stop. So, Shawn, what did you learn about yourself? How did you grow as a person as you were walking the Camino Primitivo?
I just learned the value of how important it is for me personally to keep doing these things
Yeah.
because it had been a year and a half with our non-travel thing that I hadn't been able to go create an adventure like this. And when I was out there, I mean, there were some times that in my self-talks, I really didn't like the person I was talking to because that person had grown so much less than the person that I could be. And I just really realized that life had softened me so much that I was yearning for my couch to watch a Hallmark Channel movie. I was yearning to be able to walk to a refrigerator. And that's not cool.
Yeah.
Because when our lives become so comfortable that those become what we're thinking about or what we're yearning for, then we have just really wasted our opportunity to run laps around the sun. But we are wasting our life. We are wasting the opportunity to create adventures and to create something cool. And for me, my coolest life adventures are always when I push myself outside my comfort zone, starting businesses, writing books, speaking in front of 5,000 people. And if I'm not sharp, I can't do any of that. If I'm not sharp, I can't start a new book. If I'm not sharp, I'm too afraid to get on stage and talk to 10 people. If I'm not sharp, I can't do any of these. And so it's up to you to keep yourself sharp. Don't look to your spouse, your partner, the owner of the business, the government, the neighbor to keep you sharp. Man, that's such an inside job. And you are letting yourself down in a huge way when you start to get so soft that you don't create awesome adventures for yourself.
I love that. So, what would you say are your top tips for someone who wants to start having these axe sharpening adventures?
I think number one is my suggestion is look locally and see if you can find some sort of meetup group
Mm,
that's a hiking group so you can find some kindred spirits that will help hold you accountable to getting out every Saturday and going on a hike. And then we've got to go through a training process before we get there. You can't just jump to letter Z. You've got to run through the alphabet A, B, C, D, E first.
mm,
So we need to train. We need to get you ready. And we can't just rely upon you getting motivated to go out all the time to get yourself out there. Find partners. Find partners with shared interests that help keep you motivated, not that help give you excuses not to do it, but they keep you going.
yep.
Because then you're going to find yourself getting stronger. You're going to start to see, is this for me or is this not for me? And you can make that choice. But give yourself a good 4 or 5 months of training and walking and getting your feet stronger and becoming comfortable with what the route's like. And then set a date. You're not going to quite be ready, but book the plane.
Mm,
Book the first albergue or hotel, whatever, book it. Then you've established the date that you've got to go. And I'll tell you that moment that you do that, all of a sudden the adrenaline shoots through you, go, oh my God, what did I just do? But now there's a date, March 15th, 2023, I'm going.
yeah.
And then everything starts to flow from there.
Yeah, I think that's perfect advice. Don't wait until you're comfortable and ready to book it. Book it even if it scares you.
Right? I mean, honestly, 750 miles, how could I have ever been ready for a 750-mile hike? I'm trained to a point, but I always believe I do a lot of my training as I go. I
Mm,
mean, if I've never walked 23 days, my 23rd day is training me for my 24th day. My
yeah.
24th day is training me for my 25th day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you never know if you're capable of doing it if you don't try.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, none of this is the end of the world. I mean, come on. Worst case scenario, you go back to the town before, you take a taxi to an airport, and you go home, and you have a great story about, well, I tried to do this, and these are my stories. I mean, come on, give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
Give yourself a chance. And this is the other thing, too, that I say. I mean, yeah, there's been 100 times that I wanted to quit every single time. 100 times. But sometimes you just don't listen to yourself. You just keep going. You never have to get to the finish line on day one. All you have to do is get to the next town and sometimes to the next ledge. And when you start breaking things down into baby steps like that, you got a shot. I learned that lesson the first time I rode a bike across America, ocean
Mhm.
to ocean. I wasn't trained to do that. I was a non-bicyclist. And I'm not sure how familiar your listeners will be with the United States of America, but I started in San Francisco at the Pacific Ocean, and I had
Nice.
just pedaled my butt off to get to a truck stop in Utah, near Utah. And I was so tired and I was so beat up, but I was proud of myself for getting there. And I remember at this truck stop, I went in and all these big rig trucks were there, and I kind of pulled my two-wheeler up and my bike helmet. I go and I sit down in this cafe with these truckers, and there's this huge map of the United States, a big trucking map. And I go, okay, let's go see where we are. So I go to this huge map and I put my left hand finger where I started, right there, San Francisco. And then I put my right hand on Salt Lake City. Man, I barely made it a 6 across the country, and I was wiped out. And that's where I learned one of the greatest lessons when you have big events like this. You don't look at how far you still have to go. You just look at where you have to go next.
Yeah.
Because when I started looking, I'm in Salt Lake City and I'm wiped out and I have to get to Virginia Beach, Virginia, way over there. How am I going to do that? We start to psych ourselves out when we start to think that we have to get to where we need to get in one day. All you need to do is get to there. Stay focused on that. Tomorrow will take care of itself.
Exactly. Get to your next point, get to your next goal for the next day, and that's it. And then you get to the next place the next day. Like it's just day by day.
Yeah, that's how I run the marathons too. I mean, honestly, 26.2 miles really intimidates me. It intimidates me. It's a long way, but I know I can do 5K. And when I'm at 5K, I know I can do 5K more. And now that I've done 10K, you know what? I think I can go to 15. I can do that. I can do that. And that's how you do it. You just piecemeal the little goals. And when you start piecemealing little goals, it adds up into one giant success.
Yeah, I love that. So, Shawn, what are your tips for someone who wants to walk the Camino Primitivo or one of the other lesser known Caminos?
Well, again, find kindred spirits, hook up with them, meet up. You need to find people that hold you accountable. And then I'm always a big believer when I have a big goal, I want to tell people. Because the moment that I tell someone I'm going to do it, it almost cements it into me because I'm not one to let people down. My word is my word. When I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So the moment that I become public with it, I don't run from that.
Yeah.
That's my commitment to do it. So tell people, I'm doing it. And I'm just not doing it when I retire. I'm doing it on March 15th, 2022 or 23. Get your date, book your flight, and then it's there. I mean, come on, we have this chance to, every time we step out of our comfort zone, we can inspire someone to step out of theirs. And so when you go do this, when you achieve this, what might you help someone else achieve in their life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it just has a ripple effect on through all the people.
Yeah, and it's such a positive way to live, honestly.
Yeah.
I think, I'll tell you, one of the big lessons that it always reminds me of is just how little we really do need to live. I mean, when you start carrying a backpack and you live out of your backpack for 30 plus days, you don't need everything else. You don't need to have packed the remote control TV. Why did you do that? All these things, you realize you don't need this automobile to go do this, and you don't need this. I mean, we make life heavy. Life doesn't have to be so heavy. And when you start to lighten up life, all of a sudden you become lighter. And when you become lighter, you fly higher.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Shawn.
Holly, I always appreciate people who want to maximize their potential. And so being able to talk with you today, a person who pushes herself so hard and wants to find the best within herself, it's my privilege to be here.
Oh, thank you. So where can people find you online and connect with you?
Shawn Anderson, SHAWN, Anderson.com, ShawnAnderson.com. Each week, every Thursday, I put out something called Extra Mile Thursdays. It's just a small blog positively written from my heart and my soul that helps push you up mountains, or, sometimes I push you and sometimes I pull you. But every Thursday for 512 straight Thursdays, it comes out.
Excellent. Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Holly. Privilege, pleasure. Go tackle your Camino.
Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought of this week's episode. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com or find me online and get in touch there. If you enjoyed this episode, you might want to check out these related episodes. 376, I talk about long-distance walks, time and space to think and reflect. 369, talk about getting out of your comfort zone with outdoor adventures. 368 is with Yvette Webster. We talk about how to take your hiking to the next level. 359 is with Adam Wells, how to prepare for your first long-distance trail. And finally, 354 with Stephen Marriott, we talk about the life-changing magic of walking a long-distance trail. Thank you so much for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/437 for the show notes on this episode, including all the links to Shawn and all of his websites and books and stuff. Thank you very much. Have a great week. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.